Turkey just posted that this morning, wondering if Benavidez can make 168. Maybe he has plans or ideas of maybe trying to match up Benavidez and Terence Crawford.
No,
there.
man. No, we ain't doing that fight. No, we ain't doing that fight.
Man, did you guys see Big Bo McIntyre's face when they asked him about Crawford fighting David Benavidez? He looked as if he had just found out that Ronald McDonald was bankrupt and was going to be closing Bo Mac's favorite poker spot. I mean, if they let bums in Chicago sit there and play cards all day after buying a measly cup of coffee and refilling it from their thermos from under the table, why would they kick Bo Mac out after he buys the whole menu? Besides, they're understaffed as it is. They don't have the manpower to do all that heavy lifting. So yeah, I don't know about you, but to me it looked like Bo Mac pooped himself just a little bit, just at the thought of Benavidez Crawford. Now don't get me wrong, I am not saying Bud should be fighting David. Every obligation is ultimately conditional. It's Crawford's fans who should want this fight, especially those claiming that he had just become the lineal champion at 168. As explained in my previous video, not only was he not the lineal champion at 135, because Canelo had ducked his #1 contender Benavidez for 3 years, neither was he the lineal at 168. But as I've been telling you guys for many years now, this is exactly what's killing boxing. Now don't get me wrong, the quote-unquote sports entertainment is growing, but the spirit of competition is dying. The sport is dying. I mean, just look at Bud's fans. Perfect example. Talking all that smack, how he would destroy this or that guy, right? They want to resurrect Triple G and have Bud beat him too. But then when reality hits, right? Because Benavidez is young, prime, bigger. He's not retired. They tuck tail and scurry. But again, don't get me wrong. I'm not the one demanding this fight because I don't think Crawford's competitive with David. Crawford, who had played the weight game very strategically throughout his entire career, making sure that he was always the bigger man in that ring, not only has he never proved that he could beat anybody that's good, that's bigger than him, he's not about to give up that privilege, being the bigger man himself. And don't you worry, Bud fangirls. Benavidez said he can't make 168 or he's too big to make it, something along those lines. So he's not going to be coming down and fighting Bud, right? But we're going to pull your whole card once again and say that according to you, Terence Crawford should move up to 175 and fight David. And even though technically it wouldn't be true, he wouldn't then, if he were to somehow beat Benavidez, become the lineal at 168, you could definitely state that he was basically that or good enough to be considered that good. He would be this quote-unquote uncrowned lineal champion at 168. But Bud is not about glory. He's about the payday. He's about cherry-picking shot fighters. But basically, if Canelo was some kind of lineal champion at 168 or the man as everybody states, and again had ducked Benavidez for 3 years, technically losing his lineal status, then Bud and his fangirls should be screaming out from the mountaintop, demanding that Benavidez come down and fight him. Pull David's whole card, right? And if somehow he can't do that, then Terence Crawford needs to move up to 175 and fight him there. He claims that he was 175 on fight night against Canelo, meaning he was maybe even bigger than that. He certainly looked bigger than Canelo. So if it's cool or even commendable for Canelo to go up to 175 and prove that he could compete there, right? And Crawford just allegedly destroyed, schooled, annihilated Canelo. The fight wasn't even competitive. If Crawford Bud buddies actually believe this, they themselves should be demanding he move up. But no, instead of going up to 175 and continuing with these mega fights, finally getting the shine that he deserves, they're asking him to go back to 160 and fight nobodies. Guys, that's never gonna happen. I mean, let's be honest for a second. If they actually believed that Bud was so much better than Canelo, and he just beat some amazing, great version of Ginger, which I'll prove to you in a second that they do, then they should be the ones demanding he fights Bivol, but Beterbiev's probably old enough, and definitely David. But they're deathly afraid of the possibility because they know that Bud is all smoke and mirrors. Or am I making too much sense? I mean, if you're gonna compare the man to Pacquiao and erroneously claim that he has just as many lineal titles, he doesn't. it's just 2. That's why I'm not demanding he do this. You are. Then Bud fighting at 175 would be akin to Pacquiao at welterweight. Pacquiao, who was anywhere between 144 to 150 when he fought at 147, routinely gave up 10, 15, maybe even 20 pounds once in that ring. So Bud, who was 175 at least just the other night, why can't he fight a 185, 187 Bivol? 190, 192 Beterbiev? How about 180 in David Benavidez? Okay, 192 with all that baby fat around his midsection. Realistically, Benavidez might have 10 to 15 pounds on Crawford on fight night. A disadvantage that Pacquiao dealt with routinely at 147. Dared to be great, anyone? But that's how you know that the Crawford narratives are all bullshit. Crawford is all smoke and mirrors. He's overrated. I mean, he was supposed to stop not only Canelo, but also Madrimov, and it's arguable he lost both fights. 7-5 Crawford is as good as it gets. That's what we call going life and death. So he was hyped up to high heavens, failed to meet expectations, and now they're just lying. And again, if they actually believed what they're saying, they would be pushing for him to move up and do what someone like Pacquiao did. Do what Loma did. Do what Usyk is doing right now. If he's the best pound for pound and Usyk's still fighting, then how come he can't do the same that Usyk is doing? Or something comparable. Usyk gives up, what, 20 to 50 pounds on fight night? Why can't Crawford give up 10, 15? It's because he's not good enough, and the fanboys agree. You see, when Bud and Loma were both in their prime, I was saying that I would at some point like to see the two of them fight. Because I believed Loma had the skills to eke out a close decision if he managed not to get stopped. Very dangerous fight, no doubt, and one that he likely loses, but if he wins, the reward would be amazing. I could see it now, all the Bud buddies telling me how 165-pound Crawford would have destroyed 150-pound Loma, proving exactly that which they are. Weight bullies! Which is why they love Crawford. But I'm not asking for Crawford to move up any more weight because I don't think he's good enough to win there. I've always said he's not a pound-for-pound fighter, he's a weight bully. It's those that disagree with me that should ask that he do this. But instead of that, they'd much rather predict fantasy matches. So now it's Golovkin that's Crawford's next victim. So now that's the safe space the snowflake selected. Fantasyland. Now, based on the fact that Crawford eked out a decision against washed Canelo, that now obviously means that he would have beaten Triple G just the same. And what is that based on? No, not the fact that an already past prime Triple G owned Canelo in the first fight. And they definitely have to ignore the fact that the absolute best version of Canelo still went life and death with an even older Triple G in the second. They have to be looking at the third, where a 40-year-old Triple G just showed up for the paycheck. Personally, I never thought that fight would be competitive, and somehow everybody agreed with me when it actually made sense. Because when Triple G and Terence were both in their primes, it was blasphemy to try to push Terence to 160. But apparently only one of us was watching boxing back then. The fight was considered and y'alls was haters. These clowns live in fantasy land. It is what it is. They look at a washed Canelo who threw barely 300 punches, 338 to be exact, against Crawford's 534. And they claim that that would have been enough to stand up to Golovkin's damn near 900. When Crawford couldn't even beat a Canelo that threw almost twice as many. Twice as many against Golovkin than he did versus Crawford. A measly 338 punches from washed Canelo was enough to arguably get him a draw against Crawford. If that Canelo throws twice as many versus the Crawford we saw the other night, then does Crawford run more or less in the fight? So if he runs more, does he throw more or fewer punches? After all, the reason why we thought Crawford had a good chance and a lot of you thought he would destroy him is because Canelo has no stamina left and it's all single punches. And now we're going to pretend like that's the same Canelo that Triple G fought. And that Triple G that arguably beat Canelo in the second fight, a draw was probably the fairest, was no longer prime. If Crawford is in the ring with the Canelo that throws not 300 plus but 600 plus punches, then Crawford doesn't win any of these shoe shine exchanges. He gets knocked out. And if he somehow manages to survive those exchanges by, not participating, running, then how does he stand up to a Canelo who's still outthrowing him in the championship rounds? After avoiding confrontation for the first, say, 8 to 9 rounds, and probably losing all of them, Crawford would have to stop Canelo in the last 3. I mean, we've all seen his fights. That's how he fights. This is a pattern. The better his opponent, the more rounds he gives up early in the fight and then tries to knock him out or pull it out in the last 3, which worked for him in this one, but only just. So against a Canelo that throws twice as many, you'd have to be deluded to think that he wins. Now how about a Golovkin that throws damn near 900? Crawford beat a washed Canelo by starting and ending all the exchanges. He didn't outbox him, he merely outworked him, as you all said he would. Now versus a Golovkin that threw 3 times as many as Canelo and maybe even twice as many as Crawford, it would be Golovkin dictating. He would begin and end all the exchanges, under immense pressure with the kind of power that Terence Crawford never felt in his life. Cutting off the ring, putting him on the ropes, just like little Jeff Horn did. Sure, the fight would be competitive for a round or 2, and then he'd get his eye sockets broken. Triple G feasted on the guys that ran from him. Those were his easiest fights. And if 175-pound Crawford runs from Canelo, if only in spots, you better believe he's not standing in front of prime Golovkin. Crawford hits Golovkin with some good shots early, the crowd goes wild, they get their hopes up, and then Golovkin slowly, systematically breaks him down and stops him probably somewhere around the 8th or 9th round. And everybody, even the biggest butt buddies, understood this when the fight actually made sense. Except that it didn't. These kids live in fantasy world. And they're just dishonest. Golovkin was a terrible individual, remember? And a massive weight bully when he offered to drain himself down to 154 to fight Floyd. That scared the shit out the Flomos. And the story was no different when Crawford was mentioned. But now that it's safe to snipe from your safe space, Crawford obviously destroys Golovkin just the way he destroyed Canelo. But if he's this great monster, then why not Benavidez? Bivol? Beterbiev? These kids are bitch-made, just as Bud Crawford. Keep living in fantasy world. That's all you got.
Who do you have winning this fight and why?
Well, I think Triple G edge him, being that he's the stronger puncher. His jab is more crispier, and he's just going to punch in the middle of Canelo combinations, because a lot of people don't give Triple G credit when credit's due. He cuts the ring off well. He times his opponents well. He goes to the head and the body. He uses jab. He uses distance. So that's going to play in a big factor in the fight. Canelo uses jab too, but at times he tend to slow down in the later rounds. He tend to get hit with a couple of shots, so do Triple G. So we're going to see who got the best chin in the fight.
Yeah, you don't get to be a dominant international amateur fighter like Triple G did if you don't have some boxing skills, right? Who do you want, Terence? Out of everybody out there, you're going to move up to welterweight. Who do you want? We talk about Errol Spence and Terence Crawford is eventually the big fight. Who do you want at welterweight?
See, me personally, I always believe in to be the man, you got to beat the man. And Spence is not the man at 147.
Who's the man?
Keith Thurman.